Welcome, here we go, Season 1, Episode 5 of the Salespeople Podcast. Ben, how are you?
Very good, mate. Really good. Yeah.
Good. Feels like we're gathering momentum. We've got a fan base. We're nearly in every continent. Just need to get Africa nailed down.
Well, we've got South Africa.
We have. We've got that.
Yeah.
Amazing. I guess, where's dropped
Nailed
recently.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good. We are global. So, thank you to everyone. If it's your first time, welcome. If it's your second or maybe third time, then amazing. Subscribe, like. We've got a few 5 stars. We'll take 5 stars. We like them. We might take 4 or 3s. Anything else, give us a chat directly and we'll have some feedback. But again, thanks so much for having us. Welcome to the Salespeople Podcast. The Salespeople Pod is the Middle East's first podcast dedicated to celebrating salespeople. Every week we'll have a superstar salesperson on the pod talking about their journey and a topic close to their heart. And I'm interested in this theme. I think it's going to be quite a unique experience because it's a founder, not a co-founder, a founder, someone who's decided years ago to do it on his own. And for me, could we have done it on our own? Would we have ever looked at yourself in the mirror and gone, yeah, I can do this journey? Or have, the 5-6 years ago when we decided to start something that as a team it was always going to work and maybe as an individual it may not have?
I think you think of when we started our business in COVID, it was incredibly lonely. We didn't see each other, I think, for the first 3 or 4 months because we were both in lockdown. But knowing you were there was comforting. I think I'd really struggle without a co-founder in our business, mate. Really struggle. Because we don't actually spend lots of time talking about work, but we have the occasional, probably once or twice a week, where we just unload on each other and then get on with it. I think keeping that in would be really tough.
There's both sides to it, right? Because there's been times, and I think you've mentioned it a lot more than me, was when there's good times, and there are some good times, there's a lot of roller coaster. It's like those celebrations, and when you're at the top, maybe as a solo founder, do you get that chance to celebrate? Whereas us, we've gone through a journey, we can share that moment, and you've got that alignment of success. Equally with the challenging times, where whether it could be a deal, whether it could be a process, whether it could be a person, you've also got that sounding board to try and solve. And to not have that, I'm just really intrigued to understand how you go around that.
If I was a solo founder, I think I'd leverage non-exec directors or people outside the business a lot more than maybe what we do at the moment. And maybe we should still. I think you have to have that sounding board. You go crazy, man. I think anyway. I'd really struggle.
And building from scratch as well. I think if we cast our minds back to when we started, we kind of had our own idea. And if I paint the scene, it was like New Year's Eve, 2019?
Yeah.
And it was you, me, and my wife watching New Year's, ready to do this idea on the 2nd of Jan, but we got so excited that we did it on a New Year's Day. But the fact that we had that kind of journey together to spitball ideas, to create this kind of process, this pitch, and obviously the idea outside of that, it was strengthened because there was both of us. So starting that idea from an idea wherever he was, it's really interesting to understand how that journey goes. In terms of investment, so we'll get into the investment journey, but bootstrapping and going for that investment is obviously 2 different sides of the coin. What do you think in terms of the advantages of leveraging investment versus bootstrapping? Obviously, the fundamental is you kind of have a boss once you get investment, but you get that access to funds and access to kind of freeing up ideas, freeing up kind of opportunities for people, product, places. What do you think is the good and bad of investment and staying bootstrapped?
I mean, we obviously went on a wild journey with our last business from seed through to Series B. And I think we saw, as employees, but senior employees at the time, the amount of pressure that the business got from investors. So I know when we started the business, we was like, we'd never take investment. And we've danced with the idea a couple of times in the last 4 years. I guess if we talk for ourselves, if we had taken investment, we probably would have grown quicker. But there also would have been other pressures, people to answer to. And we don't have that, right? Not that we ever do take a Friday off, but if we wanted to take a Friday off, we could, and we'd have no one to answer to. But there's definitely huge benefits to it. But that doesn't come without its pressures. And I think in this region, fundraisers are often celebrated as successes. But we know from our time at Bayzat, that's often the start of a journey, and when the pressure really comes. So whilst raising funds can be celebrated, I think there's a lot of internal stuff that you have to work through once you've done that.
It's just like putting petrol in a car. You can fill up the tank, but it's still going to run out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've got Josh coming in from Playbook and Forfa Creatives. One thing actually that we've got, he's a sales-led founder as well. So
the second one on, right? We had that Alistair. I think for me, why these stories are really good to share with everyone is, as a salesperson, I think you always come up with good ideas. Like, salespeople tend to be quite heavy on idea and ideation. So we come up with ideas, but quite often I think salespeople don't execute. Like, how do I build that product, or how do I go to market with that? Where I think Alistair and Josh today will show us that you can build business without having to have like that great how to build a product knowledge behind you.
And he's sold in 3 continents as well.
It's insane, eh?
Not many people can say that. Should we get him on?
Let's do it.
Let's do this. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
How's it going, mate?
Yeah, good. Excited to be on.
You're a veteran, mate. You've done this before. Radio shows, podcasts.
Yeah, a couple. Not for a while, though.
Light work for
go
you.
easy on me.
Yeah, good. How's life? How's Q4 life?
Yeah, good. So we're coming out the back of like quite a tough summer. So we obviously work in hospitality.
Yeah.
And in summer, like bars, restaurants, beach clubs, they all shut down. So coming out the other side of it now, it's like a positive time and everything.
Is this like the biggest 6 months for your business?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of up till June until probably last month. It's quiet, quiet to say the least. And then now the market just kind of opens, and now we're kind of pushing forward with everything. So
cool, mate. You've sold in 3 continents,
yes.
So we're really keen to get into that. But first of all, kind of sales journey. I know you've done a lot of sales roles across the globe, so get us into your journey, get us in how you got to the Salespeople podcast.
So I went to uni in the UK, and my first job was working in finance, actually, as a FX broker for about 1.5 years. Super corporate, white boy sales, super high pressure, 20 blokes.
Wolf of Wall Street-esque?
Yeah, like a very, very bad version of it, basically. Lots of bad suits and bad chat, basically.
BTEC.
Yeah, pretty. I actually did a BTEC. So I did that for about 1.5 years and decided, like, I do not thrive in this kind of environment, and it's like, you're calling, people are like, oh, you're a broker, but it's essentially telesales, right? 150 calls a day, 3 hours of talk time. Did that for 1.5 years, and that was probably the hardest sales lesson I had. So
what did you learn?
That I don't like FX. So everything from the interview, right? Sat across from the guys, and the interview, the guy was like, have you done your research? Yes. Can you sell our services? Yes. And he dials a number and he gives me the phone and says, sell it.
That's nuts.
And I didn't realise it was a guy in the office I was talking to. But that was the environment, which was horrific,
Sink or swim from minute one.
You were there for 18 months.
18 months.
Stickability.
Yeah.
It's like 5 years.
Yeah. But that was like a fear-led sales role. And from that, I probably learned a huge amount. And probably from that, I kind of thought, anything apart from this will probably be really easy. So I went from that, I moved to tech sales for about 1.5 years, 2 years, which was a startup actually selling CRM software, which was a lot more enjoyable, higher deal sizes, but a long deal cycle, and found that I was just doing quite well with it because it was more relationship led, From there, I moved to Australia and I had various sales jobs, kind of lower level management sales jobs. From Australia to Dubai, a couple of sales jobs, and then obviously founding my company. So
why did you move to Australia?
I think a combination of things. I was probably in my early 20s and just wanted to, experience something different, So I went there with the idea of actually not doing anything too professional. We were just me and my brother up and down the coast for 3 months, and then
not a bad life.
Thought, it's probably time I get some experience on my CV. And I actually ended up selling goggles, really random, swimming goggles. Like Speedo?
Yeah.
It was a company called Zogs.
Ben's got a couple of pairs.
Oh, yeah, really? Yeah, no, it was fascinating. So, again, like complete variation, but my job was to sell from Sydney to Byron Bay to the retailers. So you're selling like next year's swim lines, goggles, swimwear, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that is so far away from it.
Yeah. And then I went from goggles to food. So I went from finance to tech to goggles.
You get hungry after a big swim, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, complete variation. And then from Australia, I was doing quite well. And at the Christmas party, I was sat across from a guy that owned the rights to sell it in the Middle East. And he was like, what are you doing next year? And I said, well, this, I guess. And he just said, look, come and work for me. So that was probably December 20th. The first week of Jan, I was in Dubai with my suitcases.
Amazing.
That job, it wasn't how it was sold to me. So I was actually there a week.
Hmm.
Then I had 3 or 4 months in Dubai, and I started my first company, which was essentially consulting. I did that for 3 years whilst I was working. I got a job at Deliveroo. I launched their corporate offering here in the region. And then from the capital that I made from the consultancy allowed me to start my business.
What was the consultancy? What were you doing?
We were, I say we, it was me and my laptop. So we were advising about like customer experience for a tech company that provides retail software. And again, this contact I met from playing squash. The guy was very senior there, and basically got a contract with him, and yeah, it was just one of these things that I was consulting to and kept moving.
There's so much of that in Dubai, like who you meet socially become really important, like professional contacts.
Absolutely. Well, network is what's important in this region, because everyone's kind of in the same boat in this country, and people move here with little or no network. And I feel like people are quite open, when you're speaking to them, and a lot of the time people are doing interesting things over here, and people are open for opportunity and talking. So yeah, it's kind of like one thing's kind of led to another, of moving here to starting something to getting jobs. It's kind of just been the case for the last 7 years, I'd say, for me.
How was the Deliveroo journey?
Amazing, honestly, absolutely amazing.
So how big were they when you joined?
I joined when it felt like a proper startup. So maybe had like 30, 40 people in the Dubai office, but the office was like proper startup kind of vibes. And this is when they were changing their strategy from being very selective over the restaurants they bought on, to then the strategy of let's onboard everyone. And so I was kind of part of that boom of the company. And my department was kind of like a startup within a startup. So Deliveroo have something called Deliveroo for Business. We'll sign up a bank, and we give them the software that allows their staff to order food when they stay late, or for their Friday lunch. It's like they can go on and charge it to the company, basically.
Like an employee benefit.
Yeah, like a perk, right? So we signed up probably like 200-300 companies, had a small team, and it was a startup within a startup. There was no processes, and that's kind of what I thrived in and enjoyed doing. And then from that, the first company I actually wanted to start was very similar. But then we pivoted to what we have now,
So UK, Australia, UAE, from a sales standpoint, what differences have you seen?
Very difficult. So London, I felt, was like hyper competitive. I think the talent pool there is like super high. I feel like there's more salespeople in the UK are wanting to do sales, and I feel like it's more competitive and people push each other more. In Australia, it's like the polar opposite. People are more concerned about where they're going surfing or like Friday drinks. But I was selling goggles, I wasn't selling, I wasn't working in finance.
And field work, right?
I was like, I was selling to retailers, showing them swimming goggles.
Yes.
It's not like
I'm just picturing you demonstrating as you walk in the shop.
It's difficult to kind of compare like what I was doing in London, selling something that's like enterprise sales, to essentially selling swim lines and goggles. Very different questioning. So very difficult to compare, but two very different sales.
And then the UAE, how does that compare?
The UAE, I mean, I love this country. It's kind of like a second home to me. In terms of sales here, again, different industry. So hospitality, restaurants, marketing, some things that we notice, there's such a high churn of people in restaurant marketing departments that people only stay 12, 18 months. And then they're moving on to different hotels, different restaurant groups. And so this is kind of like a relationship sale, but it's also hyper competitive as well, because the amount of similar products, similar offerings always launching. So the people that we're meeting, are probably getting 20, 30, 40 cold calls about very similar products, So our challenge was, how do we differentiate ourselves? Like, what else do we do that's different? And how do we get in front of people and do something that is different to what everyone else is selling,
And there's two of us here. There's just you on the other side. Yeah. It's how is the world of being a founder? I think like in our intro, Ben and I were very curious. I don't know if we could have done it without each other, and that journey we went on, especially kind of during the COVID era, was integral being together. How did you go from kind of idea to then getting through to building out your sales function and doing it kind of on your own and at the top?
Good question. Although I am kind of operationally doing the business by myself, right? I've been very fortunate to have a few very key people around me who have helped, guided, supported, financially, introductions and stuff. So when I started, to be honest with you, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I think a certain level of naivety is needed to actually start a business over here in something you don't really know too much about.
Or madness.
Or madness. 'Cause if you knew what the following 2 to 3 years is going to be like, you'd probably rethink it, right?
100%.
Or change what you're going to do. So unfortunately, the only way to kind of, people used to say learn by failure. That's actually, I feel, the only way. You fail, you learn, you move on. So yeah, the journey by kind of myself, if you like, has been tough, but I've also had a lot of support, through investors, through partners, etc. So I've not been completely by myself.
Yeah, good.
Talk to us a bit about Playbook. How did it come about? Where was the idea from?
Yeah, so the biggest problem, given I was working at Deliveroo in the space, right? The biggest problem as a consumer was like, where do I go out and what is there to do? So if I wanted to go out to a brunch or a business lunch or a ladies' night, I would often Google this information and struggle to find like stuff that's up to date. So for example, I'd land on an article written half a year ago and not know if they're still offering that business lunch or that particular night out. And this was the first problem. The second problem is speaking to the businesses, the owners, the marketing managers, is they're getting called 30, 40, 50 times by the discount apps, by the concierge services, by the 2-for-1 platforms. And good brands, they don't want to go on these platforms, It discredits their brand. They get poor customers. They don't see an ROI. So very simply, the two ideas, we said, let's create a solution where they can post whatever it is they're offering in store. So they don't need to give us anything unique, any packages, any discounts. Post what you're offering to a consumer-facing product, right? Just SaaS, right? So when you've got a new evening or new menu you want to launch, post it, it will go to our app. And that's how the idea kind of started. It was very, again, following Deliveroo strategy. We wanted to onboard 100 of the best venues that we possibly could to allow us to come into the market. Because if you sign up initially the shawarma house around the corner, which I do like shawarmas, but it's then very difficult to sign up the larger group. So that first year was really slow because it's chicken and egg.
Yeah.
You need usage on the platform to get the good brand, You need the good brand to get the user. And so that process was like remarkably slow, but we started off selling to the top end of the market. And since then, it's been more of a dominoes effect, right? Because we can sit in front of people with the credibility to say, we work with these 200 amazing clients. We'd like to work with you as well,
And that sales journey, like you've got an idea versus like a tangible product. You're going in at the high end. You want to get the top 100 companies. Yeah. How do you strategize that? And what did you do and what did you take to get to that figure?
I think so. Sales here, when I look at food sales, right? We analysed a lot of sales strategies, right? And it was usually death by PowerPoint. So the salesperson would go out, they'd open the laptop, they'll go through the 10-slide presentation. And so the strategy kind of was, do not open a PowerPoint, 1. 2, it's just complete questioning, So for half an hour, we should not be talking about the business, what we're doing, our proposition. It's understanding where are your problems, right? If you're a marketing manager, like what are you under pressure about? If you're a business owner, what are the things that are really important to you? For example, we're empty on a Thursday. Why are you empty on a Thursday? Are you doing any promotions? Where are you marketing this? So we kind of went in with a complete consultancy approach for the first year, where it's complete, okay, we understand what you're looking to do. And then the second half was not even selling what we're doing. It was actually selling what we're going to be doing, right? Which is a very difficult thing to do.
So tough.
When you've got nothing to really show, you're kind of wanting people to take a bit of a punt on you and to be like, yeah, we'd like to be associated with you and your company. And once we had to get those brands by kind of consulting, kind of sharing the vision. And once you've got that credibility, it's much easier then to
why do you think people did take a punt on you, mate? Like with all the competitors in the market?
I think, it's a good question. I think because we understand like what the problems are, right? It's the things I just mentioned. Like they don't want to damage their brand. They just want to put bums on seats, and what's the easiest way to do that? Where they, for example, they don't have to integrate POS systems. Yeah. They don't have to train their staff on redemptions. These are huge problems. And all these companies that keep launching, if you just imagine that a restaurant might work with 10 apps, that's potentially 8 or 9 training sessions, And I remember we actually had a model to begin with, which involved integrations. And I went to this well-known brand to do a training session on redemptions in front of 30 staff. And I went back the same afternoon, 5 hours later, to redeem something. They were clueless. It was complete confusion, And so that was just like red flag that that's obviously a real problem.
It's really hard to scale. And like,
Yeah,
I assume there's a big turnover of those 30 staff as well, right? And
Yeah,
to
there is.
retrain
I mean,
them.
look, if you're delivering a load of value, right, there's certain apps who are just smashing it, right? The Privileges, the entertainers, etc., where everyone will know the code because there's 100 people coming in every day to redeem it. But when you're starting up and you're getting a redemption a week, whatever you're getting, they'll forget about it.
Yeah, that really resonates. There's an app that I use, and it's definitely not the biggest in the market, and I use it in probably 1 or 2 restaurants, and I ask to use it, and they're like, what?
Yeah,
and then you have to go off and ask someone else, and
it
feels kind of awkward as a customer, but I'd imagine for them it's
a problem. And if you think it's in your strategy to sign up hundreds of restaurants, right, unless the value's there, then they're not that interested. So I think, going back to your question, why did people kind of take a punt on us? I think we addressed all of the pain points in our solution, and we made it as easy as possible to onboard them with no friction. So once they've signed up, they have to do very little. We can just send them a report at the end of the month.
And is that what differentiated you at the beginning?
At the beginning, I think so, and I think also that we only went after the premium. Again, I see apps launch all of the time, and they're doing, fine dining to fast food to gyms to spas to leisure to entertainment, and it's just too much.
Trying to be everything to everyone.
Unless you've got a team of like 50 people, it's not possible to do everything well. So we focused on one thing and tried to do it well, and a certain segment, in that industry to try to do it well. That I think that's what I think really helped us move.
And then how's the sales team journey been? So you got those early wins. How has that evolved, and what does the sales team and structure look like?
We've been very fortunate, actually. So the first person that we hired as a salesperson, I don't think he'd ever done sales before, to be honest with you, and he turned out to be exceptional. So for a very long time, a big part of our early success was due to this sales hire that we made that just completely powered the business. After that, we've had our kind of ups and downs, if you like. We've tried to hire, because as a startup, it comes down to money, right? We'd love to hire really experienced people, but there's an amount of money we're kind of prepared to pay. So we've had variations of trying to find like diamonds in the rough and try and train them. But again, with that, as kind of a founder, there's only so much time you have to try and train them, to try and make them understand, to guide them. That as a startup, you need people you can just be like, go, right? This is what we're selling, figure it out, sell it, So I think at times we've had, 4, 5, 6 people, right? And it's been tough to kind of do. And our strategy kind of changed to saying, let's spend and let's get one really experienced person in that can just do it. And going to this strategy, our sales have like gone through the roof. So we've got far less people, but the people we do have are brilliant,
What about the non-sales stuff? So obviously you've come in as a salesperson, so I'm assuming that function you kind of can box off early because you can build based on your experience. But the marketing side, the product side, the finance side, how have you found that, especially as a founder?
Again, we've been very lucky hiring the right people, right? So the people that are kind of now, we're a small team, right? I think we've got like 17, 18 staff. Like we're small enough that the team is fairly flat. However, the people that we do have in and have been in early, I completely trust them, and they're exceptional at what they do, So I'm no guru in marketing and finance and whatever it may be, but luckily we've hired really well that we've got people that take complete ownership for it.
To be clear, mate, like there's not much luck in hiring great people like that. That's hard to do. So you've obviously got some formula that works in your process, regardless whether they're finance or operations that works for.
Yeah, I think because what we're doing isn't like rocket science, right? We work in like a fun industry. And a lot of it is people-based, And so the CV, yes, it gets them through the door, but past that point, it's purely, do I trust this person? Do I like them? I say to people interviewing, would you sit next to this person on a 8-hour flight and be happy to talk to them? That's a big telltale. Like, you happy? Do you want to work with them? Do you trust them? Can you send them in front of a client to deal with something outside of their role? And these are the things we kind of look for in people, because essentially as a startup, it's all kind of sales-led, right? Relationships, it's all sales-led. Mm-hmm. This is what is moving us as a business.
And moving into kind of the fundraising, founded for creatives, kind of how has the fundraising journey been? How has the opportunities that you've seen that have led to other businesses come about?
So fundraising is a funny one. I mean, we were just speaking about this, but it's a very difficult thing to get right because no one really knows the answer of how to fundraise, So I think some people manage to raise very easily based on previous successes. If you've had really successful business, you can raise funds probably quite easily. If you've gone to a top business school and done an MBA, you could probably raise funds quite easily, you know. But if it's your first business, you've never raised money, you know. I was fairly junior in not junior, but like I hadn't done anything at this point that was exceptional and standout, right? To raise large amounts of money off a presentation. And so again, trial and error. How do you raise money? You know, so I probably spent a year trying to raise funds before I got anything, you know, and this was doing the classic stuff, applying online for VCs, outreach on LinkedIn, trying to speak to people. And I think I met about 60 people before I got any investment, but I had nothing to show.
That's just a sales process almost. Right?
It was a sales process, but it's not like doing sales when we didn't even have anything to sell. Do you know what I mean? It's selling an idea that might exist in 6 months, you know? So at least with sales, you're selling something. This is like, okay, give me your 100 grand and we might build this. And if we build it, we might succeed, you know? And so the strategy kind of changed. Like the cold stuff didn't work for fundraising for me when we had nothing, and it went complete relationships, you know? So I started playing a load of sports, things that I enjoyed doing anyway. Lots of paddle, lots of golf, and just speaking to people. And lots of people entered with small amounts of money. Then over time, they wanted to support the business because they saw us as moving, you know? But it's a journey. I mean, if anyone listening has got the key to success for fundraising, then please let me know. You know?
And then for creatives, how'd that come about?
So as we kind of started scaling up the business and working with all of these brands, we were doing lots of stuff on social media, like creating content and generally helping out in other aspects outside of what we wanted to do. And people started coming to us saying, can you create content for us? Can you help us with managing our social media? And we just kind of thought, let's create another business that can facilitate anything creative. So social media management, strategy, ads management, professional photography, videography, editing. Let's just create a suite of stuff. Let's hire some really skilled people in these positions and let's sell it. So we created this brand probably 8 months ago. And in the last 4 months, it's just boomed. We're having a real hiring problem at the moment because too much business is actually coming on.
Nice problem.
It's a nice problem, but it's still a problem. You know,
it's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Yeah. So lots of very well-known global brands now, we now do the full 360 marketing for across multiple sites. So this is something that kind of came organically, but we saw an opportunity and we're looking for ways to diversify our offerings, basically.
What next, mate? What does 2025 look like after smashing Q4?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of things. We recently got backed by a VC in this region. During summer. Thank you very much. And we are developing something AI-based that will help bars, restaurants, hotels, hospitality venues understand their ROI on marketing spend. We won't go too much, maybe on another podcast later.
Let's do the launch in a few months.
Yeah, exactly. But the biggest problem that we foresee is these businesses have no idea how things are performing. So they'll go on apps like Playbook, they'll spend on influencers, they'll pay for online articles, and the only success is I got 100,000 impressions. There's no tangible results, right? Unless people are booking through booking links or paying for things, they will never know. And we believe we've got the solution to fill that gap, which actually accounts for about 60% of all bookings, which no one's actually filled. So this is what we've raised a lot of money for. We're building a team around and we'll be launching in Q1, which we're very excited about.
Amazing. All right, we'll end part 2. We'll go quick fire. Got our Playbook question and then we'll sign off. Quick fire, just going to fire some questions, all sales related, and just first answer, quick little rationale, nothing too long. Cool. Cold calling or hyper-personalised emails?
Cold calling. Actually, can I say both? Is that an answer?
Do whatever you want.
Both.
But why both?
Hyper-personalising email should be something automated and running in the background. Cold calling should be something you do every day.
Community building or networking?
Ooh, networking. Don't explain why.
Absolutely, every time.
I think community building, that's a good question. Community building is, I think it's good for building up your brand, right? Networking for me is more how, when you're networking, you're actively looking, what things can I add? What is everyone else doing in the market? Who can I partner with? So I'd say networking. Long
sales cycle or short sales cycle?
We're in a short sales cycle, but I think I'd prefer a long sales cycle because that's dictated by the deal value, right? Short sales cycle, low value, long sales cycle, high value.
Enterprise deals or SMB deals?
Well, yeah, I'll say enterprise, but we're SMB going into enterprise sales.
This is very on the fence.
Yeah. Well, they're both like legitimate things.
Mutually exclusive. Work weekends or you're fully switching off?
I would like to, again, I'm on the fence again. I'd like to not work weekends, but...
I feel like your industry is working overtime on weekends, right?
People in the restaurants, yes, but people like that we deal with, marketing managers, etc., they're not. Yeah. But I think just you guys know as well that it's impossible just to completely switch off because, as a business owner, you've got to manage your business, right?
I'm going to throw another one in that isn't part of the norm. Be a founder or a co-founder?
So I've had co-founders in previous ventures, and when you're aligned, it's probably brilliant, right? But when you both have, my experience, the same skill set, right, it's difficult, or maybe one works more than the other, it becomes a problem. So the ideal setup is a co-founder who complements you, who's good at things you're not, and vice versa. So I would say co-founder, definitely.
Office or remote?
We've got an office, but again, I'd say office actually. The reason is because we've got short deal cycles, loads of stuff going on, loads of clients, loads of moving parts. It's building that team environment, So I can't actually work from home. I fall in a YouTube hole, So I need to physically be at an office, at a desk working.
With the expectation your team are there? Or
no, we tell people you don't have to be in, work where you want, But because we've said that, everyone's in, usually 5 days a week.
Yeah, nice.
But if someone doesn't want to be in for the week, then it's no problem.
How do you switch off on the weekends, mate?
Lots of sport. Difficult question. I guess I don't, try and play sport, time with my fiance. But tricky thing to do.
Best tip to be a successful salesperson in the UAE?
God, that's tough, isn't it? That's a long answer. I think sales is more about people. I think the people that try and sell are not good salespeople.
Love that.
So if you're trying to sell something, it comes across like you're trying to sell me something. The people that are successful are the ones probably not trying to sell you anything.
What you said in part 2 of about like not selling anything, 30 minutes of just conversations with each vendor, it's like 90% of people here still don't do it.
I feel like if you're genuinely trying to help people, right, then people will buy off you, But if you're just selling something generic, it's difficult because no one's got like a really unique... If you've got like a really unique solution, then people will probably coming to you anyway, But if you're selling... You've got to understand, you can't just sell anything. You've got to just understand what do you want,
Love that. What's the best bit of sales advice you've received from someone else, mate?
God. I think Elon Musk said it. Like, if you want something done, I can't remember what he said. Hire a lazy person if you want to find the easiest way of doing something.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? And for me, it used to be, okay, I need to sit down and call 150 people, but I think it's like work smart, right? So when it comes to email automation, you can automate and hyper-personalize stuff and it can run in the background, right? Or instead of cold calling, just go and speak to people, go and speak to your customers. So I think when you first start your sales career, you're like numbers, calls, pitch. But actually, that's, I think, the wrong way to do it. That it might take a bit longer, but you can get something on autopilot by being a bit smart about it.
Like doing that, I think if I looked at all the great salespeople I know, a lot of them started in that like 150 calls a day, and
definitely.
like it's a really good grounding to then work out what you shouldn't do to be able to automate and like,
definitely. And you need to go through the ringer with it, right? You guys have probably had some sales jobs. Just, the Sunday fear of, oh my God, I'm going to get called up on these things. I'm not hitting my targets and my call time, and you get that fear in you, but that's needed in your early sales career, because then you're like, well, what I do next is going to be easy, But you definitely need that. You need to have that fear at some point with a horrible manager, with, horrible targets, to then be like, okay, I know what I don't want to do.
You need your FX job to get to your goggle job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't knock the goggles out. It's a fun thing to sell.
Lastly, mate, what's the one final tip you'd leave the sales community before you go?
Again, it's tough. Some tough questions. I would feel like, sell something that, even if you don't enjoy the thing you're selling, at least enjoy like the process of it, right? So, for example, if you enjoy speaking on the phone, then at least take that from it, So if you can take 70% of the job you enjoy, then you're probably winning, So try and get in an industry you're interested in or passionate about, or at least if you're passionate about people, at least get in front of people, So I'd probably say try and sell something that you enjoy or you see a future in. But yeah, that's a tough question.
Love that, mate.
Cool, mate. So we've got our Playbook questions. So every week we will ask the guests to leave a question, a sales-related topic for the next guest. So the question for you from Ayla on episode 4 is, as a founder, how do you ensure everyone on your team from top down all stay motivated and believe in your long-term vision?
Good question. So I think for me, as a small company, it's got to be all about the people, The first thing is having an environment people are happy in, they're respected, they're listened to, even the really interns, like make them feel part of the company, that if they've got an idea, put it forward, we'll sit down and listen to it, and if it's a good idea, let's give it a go. And I think the community kind of feel of, being respected and listened to goes a very long way, and I think that's how you get people bought in, make them feel part of the journey. And people like the idea of growth, right? If they join a company with like 20 people in, the idea of, do you know what, this company could have 100 people in it in a couple of years, and where will I be? What will happen to my role, my title, what I'm taking from the company, And this is what people want to, that's what's exciting about joining a small company. Where will I be in 2 years? What could happen? And so I think talking about, when we're talking about we're raising funds, we're developing this is the plans for the next couple of years, that's what's exciting. And I think when startups launch and they're stuck to that idea, that's when issues arise, because the first idea, it often doesn't work, So I think as long as you're always thinking, what else could we be doing? Where are the gaps and how do we stay agile? I think that's what keeps people excited.
Love it, mate.
Josh, thanks so much, mate.
Thank you, guys.
That was superb. So what we're going to do, we're going to add something this week. Ben and I are going to do a little reflect. But, mate, really enjoyed your time. Great to hear your journey. And I think 2025 is going to be a phenomenal year. And we're going to get you back on for a launch special.
Yeah,
so look out for that. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Legend. Quick reflect on that, mate. I found him so smart.
Yeah. It's so impressive.
I've obviously not spent any time with him before, but he's basically built a business, identifies new areas, builds another business, like launches, raise funds. Like, he's really good, mate.
I think he's got his finger on the pulse, right?
Yeah.
So he understands his customers, he understands the market, he understands the opportunities, and he's able to bring it all together. I think we obviously were a little bit skeptical at the start about being a founder, but you can tell that he's got that
it's
network.
Like network around him of like probably equally smart people that are like working with him, identifying opportunities.
Yeah,
like really impressed, mate. Like really impressive.
I think from a sales standpoint, like he just understands that in order to understand problems, you just got to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And it's so simple, but I think if we looked at from our business, the amount of people that we speak to, from companies that we kind of vet, the biggest challenge is always in they don't understand their customers before they sell, after they sell, and whilst they've got their product. So having that simplicity of just understanding a client is just critical.
And from a salesperson's perspective, he again is another example of someone that done the grunt work for 2-3 years, hit $100. We speak about this, our first job. So lucky. It was so hard, so high paced, but like that learning you get in those 2 years, I really do think like sets you up for an amazing career, whether that's entrepreneurial or just in sales. But like I wonder how much impact that 18 months or 2 years in Forex had on him, where he's just so comfortable with the rejection and the consistent work to now building 2-3 different businesses, identifying opportunities.
And I think that's the key as well, is being able to identify that, he might take a bit of learning, but it wasn't for him, then moved on. It gave him that kind of mindset to spot those changes. If he's got a business now which is doing great, but he can see these avenues where there's different products, different tools, different kind of obstacles and challenges that you can solve. But you only get that through making these kind of critical changes throughout your career. So it's having that kind of ability to take risks.
And he's obviously raised funds based on an idea without execution. I can see why people are bought into him. Like I can see how he's raised money. Comes across really well, really personal.
Going to be a big 25 Playbook and beyond.
Yeah, awesome.
We'll finish on that note. again, thank you so much. Subscribe, like, follow, share.
TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music.
5 stars, we'll take 4. Anything else we won't be happy with, slide into our DMs if you're going to do that. But no, much love, and we'll see you for the next episode.